Her biased parents in her past life forced her to marry Xu Huai'an, who had disabled legs. She gave everything for Xu Huai'an. But in the end, when his legs recovered, Xu Huai'an, who was a powerful minister, hugged others and said, "Now it's time to return the position." She was forced to die on the eve of Xu Huai'an's marriage. To live a lifetime, she should no longer be manipulated by anyone and seek justice for herself. Without hesitation, he chose the once useless playboy fiancé A. Just how this fiancé A is different from what is rumored. She fights, he hands a knife, she kills, he sets fire. As long as it's something my wife wants to do, even if it's a thorn in the sky, I'll hold on. Later, the playboy prince took her into his arms and spoke coldly to everyone in the world. Keywords of the novel: spoiling a concubine and destroying a wife. Rebirth and return to raise the ashes of your entire family without a pop-up window, spoiling your concubine and destroying your wife. Rebirth and return to raise the ashes of your entire family. Download the complete set of TXT, spoil your concubine and destroy your wife. Rebirth, return, and raise the ashes of your entire family. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Self-admission to the hall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Self-admission to the hall. Do you want me to invite you down? In the old and dim room, damp and moldy, Lin Jinglan slowly looked up and asked the person across from him incredulously. Unlike Lin Jinglan, who had disheveled hair and a withered appearance, the man standing in front of her was dressed in a prince's python robe, standing tall and handsome. Lin Jinglan, you shouldn't have married me. I have an engagement with Qingxue. You have held Qingxue's position for so many years, and now it's time to give it back to her. Xu Huai'an said coldly, his expression filled with disgust and impatience. Now, it's time to return it to her. Lin Jinglan repeated this sentence in her heart. But back then, it was clearly Lin Qingxue who didn't want to marry you. Qingxue already has my flesh and blood in her belly. I can't let my child be nameless or without any distinction. Don't worry, after you apply for a leave of absence, I won't ignore you either. There is a village outside the city where you can live. Xu Huai'an felt that he had done all these things for Lin Jinglan, and that he had done everything in benevolence and righteousness. Xu Huai'an, you are really kind-hearted and righteous. You have been with my sister for a long time, both openly and secretly, but now you are using this kind of alms-giving tone to ask me to invite you down. Cough, 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 cough. Lin Jinglan listened to Xu Huai'an's words and felt an uncontrollable anger in her heart. However, before she could finish speaking, she coughed and tore her heart and lungs apart. But Xu Huai'an looked at his wife with curled hair in such pain, but there was no trace of emotion in her eyes. Jinglan, don't speak so harshly. You can't give birth to children for me. The Zhao prince's mansion cannot have a childless queen. Now that Qingxue is pregnant, I don't want to hurt her. Now let's each return to their respective positions. Xu Huai'an's voice was also a bit cold. You have always been polite, and you should understand why you have become so unreasonable now. Am I unreasonable? Xu Huai'an, have you forgotten that I used to have children as well, but I only stood in the way for you. I lost my child, injured my body, and couldn't have children. Is this my fault? Lin Jinglan's questioning made Xu Huai'an's face even worse. It was clearly that she didn't want to marry you at that time. At that time, your legs were disabled, and I asked for a miracle doctor for you. I would give you acupuncture and moxibustion and massage every day for 5 years to help you treat your legs. At this point, Lin Jinglan sat up straight in excitement, tears streaming down her face. At first, she was the eldest daughter of the Lin family, the Marquis of Dingbei. Although she was forced by her parents to marry Xu Huai'an, who was disabled, she sincerely wanted to spend a lifetime with him. It was I who took care of your home and served you wholeheartedly by your parents' side, it was I who wholeheartedly assisted you in your struggle with your brothers and helped you stabilize your position. It was I who went into the palace to plead with your majesty when your father wanted to depose your crown prince's position, and protect your crown prince's position. Later, your father used the family rules and almost lost his life. Have you forgotten all of these? The questioning word by word left Xu Huai'an speechless. He admitted that what Lin Jinglan said was true, but what he experienced in those years was the past he least wanted to recall, which represented his humiliating past. This is what you should have done, but if it weren't for Qingyun seeking the crown prince's help for me and asking your parents to help me, I wouldn't have become the current king of Zhao. You are far behind Qingyun. What has been done for 7 years now cannot compare to the sweet words of Lin Qingyun for just a few months. Moreover, Qingyun is innocent and kind, lively and simple, but you have a gloomy mind and are accustomed to calculation. We are not a good match. Speaking of Lin Qingyun, Xu Huai'an's face was filled with a gentle smile. Isn't she already a good match? He, Xu Huai'an, during times of suffering, you promised me that I would never leave this life. In times of power and wealth, you said you were not a good match. It's really funny and ironic. Having sacrificed everything for him, exhausted all his heart and effort, but ended up with such a result, Lin Jinglan had no love in the past. At this moment, his heart was filled with hatred and despair towards Xu Huai'an. Xu Huai'an was also angry and embarrassed by Lin Jinglan's words. He took a few steps forward and slapped her hard, his expression extremely cold. Lin Jinglan, now I'm talking to you well. It's better for you to be obedient. Tomorrow, you'll write your own resignation letter. Otherwise, I'll make it impossible for you to survive or die. His fierce gaze made Lin Jinglan, who was lying on the bed and bleeding from the corners of her mouth, feel a sudden shock. Later, Xu Huai'an left without looking at Lin Jinglan again. Qingyun is still waiting for him to discuss the matter of getting married together. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaoluo walked in and cried, speaking to Lin Jinglan. Miss, how could the prince treat you like this, Wu? Lin Jinglan held Xiaoluo's hand, her eyes filled with sadness and despair. Xiaoluo, why haven't I always been the one who's not loved? Cough, cough, cough. Before he could finish speaking, he coughed loudly, coughing up blood mixed with tears. Miss, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Xiaoluo's face was flustered with fear, and tears kept flowing out. Lin Jinglan wanted to say something, but couldn't say it. Her body had been in poor condition due to injuries, and a few months ago, she suddenly fell ill and couldn't even get out of bed. Even though she has some medical skills, she cannot perceive what is going on. Now it has reached a point where oil is depleted and life is at risk. Miss, I'll go find a doctor for you. You'll definitely be fine. Xiaoluo hurriedly went out to find a doctor. Lin Jinglan raised his hand to stop, but couldn't say anything. Why are you blocking me? I need to find a doctor for the queen, she's sick. Just before Xiaoluo left, she was stopped by someone. Although Lin Jinglan was in the room, the yard was not big, and she could hear it clearly. Huh, princess, what kind of joke are you, girl? The princess is speaking with the old princess in the front hall, and Lord Lin and his wife are also there, discussing marriage matters. What kind of princess is that sick seedling from? The guards laughed heartily. Lin Jinglan couldn't help but give a cold smile. Originally, her parents also came to the Zhao Wang mansion. But instead of caring about her seriously ill and bedridden, she happily discussed the marriage between Xu Huai'an and Lin Qingyun. At this moment, Lin Jinglan suddenly felt immense injustice. She devoted herself wholeheartedly to the Northern Marquis's mansion, the Prince Zhao's mansion, her parents, and Xu Huai'an. But none of these people cared about her. I have really failed in this life. Lin Jinglan muttered to herself, wanting to ask Xiaoluo not to argue with those people. But the clever geese outside suddenly shouted with joy. Marquis, madam, are you here to see the young lady? The young lady just coughed up blood. I'm going to ask for a doctor, but these people are blocking me. The originally silent heart seemed to have come back to life after hearing Xiaoyan's words. My parents have come to see her, and they also have their own feelings in their hearts. Xiaoyan, what are you talking nonsense about? Just now, the prince said that my sister is fine. Maybe she thought I took her seat and pretended to be sick. A beautiful voice, with a hint of grievance, was her sister Lin Qingxue. Humph, Shuer, don't daydream. It should be you who became the Empress Xiao. She has been dominating for so many years, and now it's only natural for her to return it to you. This is her mother's voice. She's always flirtatious, and she's not about to die. Whatever she does, let's go. Let's go home and help you count your dowry. This is her father's voice. Then came the sound of footsteps leaving, and they all forgot how they had forced her to marry Xu Huai'an. At this moment, Lin Jinglan could no longer shed tears and instead burst into laughter. So from the beginning, I was just a mistake. Should not have been born into the Lin family, should not have become Xu Huai'an's wife, and should not have lived. As he spoke, he gasped for breath loudly, feeling a sharp pain in his heart and suddenly spewing out a mouthful of blood. Then he collapsed onto the bed, silent, his eyes wide open, full of unwillingness, unable to close his eyes. Her soul drifted out of her body and slowly went outside, then she saw Xiaoyan arguing with the guards in excitement, and finally being killed by the guards by mistake. She wanted to scream, but couldn't say anything. Helpless, she drifted away and saw her parents surrounding Lin Qingxue in the middle, happily discussing the matter of getting married. Later, as he drifted higher, he saw Xu Huai'an writing an invitation under the pear tree, with a gentle and satisfied expression. Getting further and further away, until nothing can be seen, the eyes are pitch black, and there is no more perception. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Revival of Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Revival of Life. Miss, what's wrong with you? Don't do anything foolish. In a daze, Lin Jinglan seemed to hear a familiar voice. This seems to be the sound of a clever goose. Did they enter the underworld together? Slowly opening his eyes, in front of him was a delicate cheek, which was Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan, why have you become smaller? Lin Jinglan said in confusion, and then felt that her tone was also very clear and transparent. No, after months of suffering from illness, her voice has long been hoarse and difficult to hear. Miss, what's wrong with you? Are you mad at me? Xiaoyan's eyes, which were still crying, immediately stopped crying and stared blankly at Lin Jinglan. Lin Jinglan was puzzled and turned to look around. The window was bright and tidy, with a large bookshelf filled with books, several paintings on the wall, and a guqin on one side. On the small dressing table, there were some jewelry boxes and some jewelry that had not been tidied up in time. The gentle breeze blew by, and the curtains in the room floated slightly, elegant and pure. Isn't this her room before she got married? But she clearly remembers that after she got married, this room was accidentally burned by Lin Qingxue. From then on, even if she returned to Dingbei Marquis' mansion, she had nowhere to stay and had to leave even late at night. She originally wanted to seek justice for herself, but her parents said that she was already a married girl and her room would no longer be occupied. It wouldn't be a big deal if she were burned down. Thinking of this, Lin Jinglan immediately got up and walked to the bronze mirror on the dressing table. In the mirror, there was a young girl of 15 or 16 years old, with a light sweep of her eyebrows, bright eyes, outstanding facial features, and a clear and dignified demeanor. This is my childhood self. For a moment, Lin Jinglan didn't know if it was a dream or a reality. Xiaoyan. What year and month is it now? Thinking of an unlikely situation, Lin Jinglan asked Xiaoyan, who was still in a hurry, with some difficulty. Nowadays, in the 17th year of the Great Qu dynasty, miss, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. I know you're not willing to marry Prince Xu in your heart. If we don't get married, why don't we think of other ways? Don't do anything foolish. After Xiaoyan answered, tears kept flowing down her face and she hugged Lin Jinglan's arm in fear. Lin Jinglan pinched her arm fiercely, it was very painful, very painful. But Lin Jinglan smiled, as if she had been reborn, back in the 17th year of Tiancheng, before marrying Xu Huai'an. In this life, she will no longer be manipulated by others, she will live for herself. She must make those who have betrayed her pay the price, and she will no longer be the submissive Lin Jinglan. Just before she could fully adapt to the excitement of just being reborn, the room doors suddenly opened. A woman with 2 little girls burst into the room directly. Sister and sister have woken up. It seems there's nothing serious. If that's the case, then hurry to the flower hall. Marquis and Madam have something else to tell Mississippi. The old woman raised her eyes and spoke to Lin Jinglan from a high position. Feeling slightly stunned, Lin Jinglan remembered that this day was exactly the day when Princess Xiao sent someone to come and ask the Lin family daughter to marry Xu Huai'an as soon as possible. She even directly brought the dowry to the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, leaving them no room for opposition. Later, Lin Qingxue cried and refused to marry, but accidentally mentioned the idea of getting married on her behalf. And her biological parents, without hesitation, agreed to marry Xu Huai'an. She was so angry that she fainted. Okay, could you please wait a moment, Grandma? I'll go over after a moment of grooming. Since her parents brought Lin Qingxue back to the capital, everyone in the mansion knew that she was not to be pampered, so their attitude towards her became less respectful. Please hurry up, Mississippi Marquis and Madam have been waiting for you for a long time. After the old woman left, Lin Jinglan's eyes instantly became cold. Miss, these people are becoming more and more excessive now. You are the most prestigious legitimate young lady of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion. Xiaoyan's expression was also very unpleasant, and she angrily spoke to Lin Jinglan. Don't worry, Xiaoyan. I guess when my parents see me, they will definitely force me to marry Xu Huai'an. And the approach is very aggressive and ruthless. If she doesn't agree, it will be disloyal, unfilial, and unjust. So what should we do, miss? If you marry Prince Xu, your whole life will be ruined. Xiaoyan's eyes turned red again. Her young lady is so good, why is her fate so difficult? The Marquis and Lady only have the eyes of Miss Air, but they cannot see any kindness from Mista. How about we go find the old Marquis? The old Marquis loves you so much and won't agree to let you marry Prince Xu. The old Marquis will definitely stand by your side. No way. Grandfather is far away in the Divine Doctor Valley, and it takes a month to travel back and forth. Moreover, he is currently recuperating and cannot help but trek a long distance. Lin Jinglan shook her head slightly. The only people who treated her well in the Northern Marquis' mansion were her grandparents. Her grandmother passed away 3 years ago, and her grandfather suddenly fell ill as a result. Later, he was invited by an old friend to go to the Divine Doctor Valley to take care of his body. Not only is it too late, but she also doesn't want her grandfather to worry about her. So what should we do? At this moment, Xiaoyan was just a 14-year-old girl, her face pale with fear. Patting Xiaoyan's back, Lin Jinglan felt heartbroken as she thought of the scene in her past life when she was killed by guards. Good girl, don't be afraid. Your young lady, I have a solution. Speaking, Lin Jinglan walked over to the desk, picked up his pen, and wrote on rice paper. In just a moment, it was already written and handed over to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan, I will procrastinate with my parents for a while longer. You must be quick and deliver the letter to Prince Jin's mansion for Gu Juanheng. Lin Jinglan said solemnly to Xiaoyan. That person is Prince Jin, who has been engaged to her since childhood, and what she wrote in her letter will definitely ask Gu Juanheng to help her. Don't worry, Mississippi. Even if you risk your life, Xiaoyan will deliver the letter. The little girl tightened her face and solemnly agreed. Lin Jinglan tidied up and walked out of the room, following the old woman to the flower hall, while Xiaoluo quietly slipped away from the other side and left the Dingbei Ho mansion. After waiting in the flower hall, she saw her parents comforting her sister, the beautiful-looking girl with red eyes. "I have met my father and mother." Lin Jinglan bowed with a slight blessing, but before she could get up, she let out a roar, "Rebel girl, I only asked you to help your sister once, but you were so unwilling and deliberately fainted. Do you have to bring out the family rules for your father in order to be obedient and obedient?" End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Extremely Eccentric Parents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Extremely Eccentric Parents. Be obedient and obedient. Looking at this majestic and tall man, Lin Jinglan murmured to herself in her heart. This is her father, the current Duke of Dingbei, Lin Xiaotian. My father, who was supposed to shield himself from the wind and rain and serve as his strong backing, has never seen me in the eye. At this point, it is even more for the sake of another daughter, to use family rules against oneself. Even though I had known for a long time, hearing such words still made my heart ache. Father, can only marrying Xu Huai'an for my younger sister be considered obedient and obedient? Standing up straight, Lin Jinglan couldn't help but ask back, with a hint of self-deprecation in her eyes. Lin Xiaotian was choked by her words and didn't know what to say, but his anger grew even stronger. You are the elder sister, the legitimate eldest daughter of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, shouldering the honor and disgrace of the family. This is your responsibility. Her father said coldly. Responsibility. When things need to be handled by oneself, it reminds me that I am the daughter of Lin's parents. All right, Jinglan, sit down first. Her mother, the mistress of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, rarely spoke softly to Lin Jinglan. It's just a pity, this is to let her clean up the mess for Lin Qingxue. Then, after Lin Jinglan sat down, he took her hand and spoke earnestly. Jinglan, you're a sister. You wouldn't just watch your sister jump into the fire pit, would you? My mother also knew it was a fire pit, so could you have the heart to let me jump in? I am also your daughter. Lin Jinglan blushed and asked a deep question, which stunned the rest of Mrs. Lin. Usually, Lin Jinglan never shows any disrespect towards Mrs. Lin. Mrs. Lin's anger suddenly emerged from her heart, and she looked at Lin Jinglan with a somewhat sinister expression. Sometimes, Lin Jinglan is also very strange. Even though she is her biological mother, why would she look at her with such an expression? After thinking about it, Lin Jinglan can only think of one thing. Her mother not only doesn't like her, but also hates her very much. Do you dare to contradict your mother, be disobedient and unfilial, Lin Jinglan? Is this the rule you have learned in the capital for over a decade? Mrs. Lin was furious and went forward to slap Lin Jinglan's face. In his past life, Lin Jinglan was slapped hard by her mother. But now she wouldn't be so foolish. She dodged sideways and quickly stood up. Mother, is it only when a daughter marries Prince Xu for her younger sister and destroys her lifelong happiness that there are rules? Lin Jinglan's expression remained indifferent, but when asked, she didn't save face for Mrs. Lin at all. Jinglan, can't you feel sorry for your younger sister? We didn't want you to suffer, so we left you in the capital to enjoy prosperity and prosperity. For so many years, you owe your younger sister. Moreover, although Prince Xu is lying in bed, the doctor said that he may still be fine. You have been married as the crown princess and will not suffer any losses. Seeing that it was too hard, Mrs. Lin softened her tone and spoke to Lin Jinglan with red eyes. Lin Jinglan sneered in her heart. In her past life, her mother always told her that she owed Lin Qingxue, so no matter when, she had to let her younger sister take care of her. So as long as it's something that Lin Qingxue likes, she will make sure that if Lin Qingxue does something wrong, she will always be punished. Mother, I don't want to, she said confidently, so good. Why don't you let Qingyun marry Xu Huai'an? Besides, this is her fiancé A.E. Lin Jinglan's confrontation made Mrs. Lin very angry, and she didn't know how to refute her for a moment. Okay, truly deserving of being my good daughter, I really thought I wouldn't dare to take action against you. Lin Xiaotian saw her resolute attitude, and his anger rose again. Just as he reached out his hand, he was stopped by the girl behind him. Sister, it's all my fault. My parents just think you're the daughter of the Lin family, and you're from the capital, dignified and courteous. It's only when you marry into the Zhao Prince's mansion that people feel like I'm not looking down on the Zhao Prince in the Northern Marquis' mansion. Then he looked towards Lin Xiaotian, the Marquis of Dingbei. Dad, it's not my fault, sister. It's all my fault. If you want to hit me, just hit me. My daughter is not afraid. As he spoke, tears streamed down again, evoking pity. This young girl is her younger sister, the second miss of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, and the favorite of her parents and siblings. Lin Jinglan looked at her and thought of her past life, where she and Xu Huai'an had sex behind her back and deliberately said things outside her yard. A hint of hatred surged in her heart. Since that's the case, why doesn't my younger sister marry Xu Huai'an? I remember you said you liked him very much, but now that Xu Huai'an is disabled, you don't want to marry him anymore. Don't forget, Xu Huai'an's legs were broken because of you. The favoritism of her parents made Lin Qingyun feel that it was only natural for her to pay for her. But why? Sister, I'm not unmarried. Lin Qingyun seemed to be startled by Lin Jinglan's attitude, tears streaming even harder, and a sad expression appeared in her eyes. Then you should marry Xu Huai'an, and this is already your engagement. As a general, how can you do things that are untrustworthy and ungrateful? Do you think so, sister? Speaking of the end, Lin Jinglan smiled gently and looked at Lin Qingyun seriously. Lin Qingyun looked at her gentle sister and suddenly felt a chill behind her. Why doesn't Lin Jinglan let her down now? In the past, whenever she had something to do, Lin Jinglan, a fool, would go and help her. Woo, it's my fault. If my sister doesn't want to, let it go. Mom and Dad, don't say anything. I'll get married. At this moment, Lin Qingyun suddenly spoke up, tears streaming down her face, her expression seeming lifeless, her eyes filled with despair, and it seemed truly heartbreaking. And her parents were indeed extremely distressed. Jinglan, your sister has been living a difficult life for over a decade. Unlike you, you owe her. How about returning it to Qingyun this time? Everyone said they owed her, but Lin Jinglan was puzzled by what she owed Lin Qingyun. If possible, she would rather go to the border with her parents. And these so-called glory, wealth, and status are just arsenic with knives and axes hanging above their heads. In her past life, she only found out later that the reason why she stayed in the capital was because the Dingbei Marquis' mansion held a large army and guarded important border areas. In order to ensure the peace of mind of the emperor who was firmly seated in the imperial city, she needed to leave a child as a hostage. And she is the hostage. She was fine in the capital a few years ago, but in the past 2 or 3 years, her grandmother passed away and her grandfather went to the Divine Doctor Valley to recuperate. She is alone in the capital, walking on thin ice and being careful everywhere, afraid of being caught in the wrong place. Even when someone teases and bullies her, she can only silently swallow her grievances and cry alone. I don't owe her, and although I'm my sister, I'm only 1 year older than her. I'm only 16 years old, don't you worry about my life being ruined. Lin Jinglan knew in her heart that they all knew, but they didn't care if her life was ruined. Lin Jinglan's persistence made the rest of the Lin family angry and disappointed. Jinglan, even if it's Dad begging you, okay. Just help your sister this time. After you get married, if you feel unhappy, Dad will think of other ways to bring you back. Mom and Dad, don't make things difficult for your sister. I'll just get married. If possible, let them carry a corpse back. After finishing this sentence, Lin Qingxue ran out crying. Quickly, quickly, everyone go and watch Miss Air, don't let her do anything foolish. After hearing Lin Qingxue's words, both parents were anxious, and her mother hurriedly commanded the maid and mother-in-law in the flower hall to follow. Looking at the caring eyes, if there were nothing else, they would definitely follow along and be careful to comfort their precious pearl. Lin Jinglan, are you satisfied? Are you willing to force your sister to death? Lin Xiaotian couldn't help but shout at Lin Jinglan, his eyes filled with disappointment and anger as he looked at her. Lin Jinglan couldn't help but sneer in her heart. Although it was Lin Qingxue's own fault, in the end, she blamed all the mistakes on herself. He kept saying that he had harmed Lin Qingxue and the Lin family. Jinglan, Dad has given you a chance. You said you won't get married. If you don't get married, you won't be from my Lin family anymore. Her father, Duke Dingbei, stared at her coldly, with a threatening tone in his words. Father, will you drive me out of the Lin family? In her past life, it was like this, but at that time Lin Jinglan was very scared and really worried about being kicked out of the Lin family, but now, Jinglan, it's my mother begging you. Can you help your sister and the Lin family? I know you've always been the most filial. Can I kneel down for you? Her mother took her hand and knelt down at her, crying and speaking. Jinglan, if you feel it's not enough, will Dad kneel down for you too? With a deep sigh, Lin Xiaotian also knelt in front of her. At this moment, there were housekeepers, maids and guards outside the flower hall, and a large group of people with wide eyes watching the situation here. In her past life, it was like this. They all forced her like this, and when her parents knelt down for her, how could she bear it? Helplessly, if she didn't agree, she had to agree. Lin Jinglan also knelt down, his expression sorrowful, tears falling from the corners of his eyes. Mom and Dad, why are you forcing me so hard? Have you forgotten that I have an engagement with Crown Prince Jin, Gu Juanheng? How can I marry Xu Huai'an? Don't worry, Jinglan. As long as you agree to marry Prince Xu, your father will solve this matter for you. Gu Juanheng is not a good match for being a playboy. Her father relaxed a little when he heard Lin Jinglan, and quickly said. And Lin Jinglan counted in her heart, 1, 2, 3, what Dingbei Marquis means is that this crown prince is no longer worthy of your eldest daughter. Is it just that I, the Gu royal family, are being looked down upon? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. True Fiancé AE. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. True Fiancé AE. Suddenly, a bold and unrestrained voice rang in everyone's ears. Looking back, I saw a young man dressed in brocade, holding a folding fan and walking slowly. This young man is around 18 or 19 years old, with a slender and upright figure, a handsome and extraordinary face, and a haughty and reckless expression, even carrying some idle children. Lin Jinglan felt that if it weren't for the annoying feeling of being the number one in the world on his face, he would definitely be able to crush most of the young ladies in the capital. Upon seeing this person, her parents immediately changed their expression and then gave themselves a cold glare. Jinglan, this is all our own business. Why did you invite Prince Jun? Lin Jinglan didn't say a word because she did ask Xiao Yan to bring this person. He is Gu Juanheng, the crown prince of Prince Jin, who has been engaged to Lin Jinglan since childhood. His father is the younger brother of His Majesty's one mother compatriot, and he is the only legitimate son of Prince Jin's mansion. His status can be said to be extremely prestigious. And Gu Juanheng's reputation as the number one playboy in the capital city is well known throughout the city. Mrs. Lin was wrong when she said this. Your young lady and I are unmarried couples, and we are about to get married. How could we be outsiders? Gu Juanheng smiled loudly and spoke to Mrs. Lin in a frivolous tone. Oh, by the way, just now I heard what you meant. It seems like Miss Lin is going to marry that disabled Xu Huai'an, and despise this prince's playboy and promiscuous behavior. He also wants to terminate his engagement with me. Why don't I go to the palace now and tell this to my uncle?" Upon hearing these words, the Marquis of Dingbei and Lady Lin, who had already stood up, almost couldn't stand steady. Prince Jun laughed. "Among the crown prince's people, there are dragons and phoenixes, and a young woman is not worthy of the crown prince. Jinglan already has a crush in her heart. Jinglan is my eldest daughter, who has not been by my side since childhood. As a father, even if he puts in all his merits, he will fulfill her." Lin Jinglan sneered. In her past life, it was like this. Her good father said he wanted to find a way, but in the end, he said he liked Xu Huai'an and would rather die than marry Gu Juanheng. In the end, Lin Jinglan became the shameless person who secretly gave and took away his sister's husband. But Lin Qingxue became a pitiful person who had her husband taken away by her sister, causing sympathy. "What you said doesn't count. Miss Lin is the one who has an engagement with me. I just asked her, Lin Jinglan, do you really don't want to marry me?" Lifting the folding fan, impatiently preventing Lin Xiaotian from speaking again, he asked Lin Jinglan and blinked at her while speaking. Shocking waves. Both parents looked at her with threatening eyes. "Your noble status and graceful demeanor make the young lady naturally willing to marry you. Moreover, this is a gift from your majesty, and the grace of heaven is immense. How could there be a gift of not getting married?" Lin Jinglan also stood up and smiled slightly at Gu Juanheng, speaking calmly but firmly. "Ha ha ha, good, Miss Lin, gentle and virtuous, generous and graceful, and beautiful beyond measure. This is my blessing, Gu Juanheng. Dingbei Marquis, you don't need to be polite. In a few days, I will have my mother come to hire me." Gu Juanheng suddenly burst into laughter upon hearing Lin Jinglan's words, his expression unrestrained and extremely flamboyant, truly worthy of the title of the top playboy in the capital. "I will go to the palace now and tell my uncle and grandmother about my upcoming marriage. They will definitely be very happy. Lin Jinglan, wait for me. Today, I won't go to the Drunken Huan Tower. You are much more beautiful than those little ladies." Without waiting for the Lin family's answer, he left directly, making it impossible for anyone to say anything. Lin Xiaotian and Mrs. Lin stared at everything in amazement. Once Gu Juanheng told His Majesty the Empress Dowager about this matter, there was no room for further negotiation. Lin Jinglan will marry Gu Juanheng no matter what. "Jinglan, do you insist on trampling on yourself like this? Gu Juanheng is a promiscuous playboy, without any ambition. He only knows how to wander around the brothels and Chu mansions all day long. What benefits do you have by marrying him?" Mrs. Lin looked at her with a disappointed and angry expression. "But he is my fiancé, and I will marry him in good name. Besides, it's better to marry him than to marry a disabled person." Lin Jinglan smiled slightly, with a hint of joy in her eyes. She bowed to them and was about to turn around and leave. "Jinglan, parents are really disappointed with you. You are so reckless. How can you be worthy of being a member of our Lin family?" With a sneer, the big picture, is it sacrificing oneself to fulfill one's sister? Then he stepped on his own blood and life to get what they thought of. She has already sacrificed her life for this in her past life, and she will never repeat it in this life. "Mom and Dad, I am also your daughter. Why do you always care about Lin Qingxue and never think about me?" After all, Lin Jinglan couldn't help but ask this question. She turned around and looked at her parents with determination. Boldly, "Lin Jinglan, if you dare to question your parents, go to the temple and kneel down. Reflect on yourself for me. Without my orders, you are not allowed to get up." This is becoming angry with embarrassment. Lin Jinglan knew it was the result, but she could no longer be an obedient person in this life. Daughter obeys. Without any objection, Lin Jinglan followed the people sent by her father and arrived at the ancestral hall. She went in alone and knelt on the ground. Although Xiaoyan and other maids were worried, they could only act in a hurry. She couldn't come in or stop them. "Miss, kneel down properly. The Marquis has instructed you to wait for some reflection before you can get up." Grandma Du beside her mother said coldly. Half a year after her family returned, all the servants in the mansion knew that she was not favored, and the most precious young lady in the whole mansion was Lin Qingxue. So the people around my parents are also accustomed to watching others play tricks on me, and at this moment they are all watching her jokes. Lin Jinglan ignored it and knelt straight down, looking at one tablet after another in the ancestral hall, which was the ancestor of the Lin family. Kneel down. The longer she kneels, the faster her relationship with Dingbei Marquis' mansion disappears. From morning till night, the gate of the ancestral hall was closed, and no one cared about her. She kept kneeling, thinking about what had happened in her past and present lives. My parents feel so sorry for Lin Qingxue. Even if she breaks her skin, how could they really make her marry the disabled Xu Huai'an? "Hey, why are you kneeling here? I just heard someone outside chatting and saying, it seems like you haven't even eaten food." While she was pondering, a voice suddenly sounded, startling her. Turning his head, he saw Gu Juanheng leaning diagonally against the door of the ancestral hall, even holding a piece of grass at the corner of his mouth. "Prince Jun." Lin Jinglan nodded, and then Gu Juanheng sat down beside her, looking at her with great interest. "Lin Jinglan, in fact, you look really good. I won't lose out even if I marry you." Gu Juanheng suddenly spoke up, and Lin Jinglan remained calm. "Thank you very much, Crown Prince, for helping me out today." Lin Jinglan sincerely expressed her gratitude. In her past life, due to her father's reasons, Gu Juanheng was ridiculed by people who said he was wearing a green hat, which was not as disabled as a disabled person. Even so, Gu Juanheng did not come to trouble her. Instead, he came to her rescue during an assassination attempt. "You don't need to thank me, after all, you know a lot in your letter. The handle is in your hands, how could I not come?" Gu Juanheng looked straight at Lin Jinglan. "Don't worry, Crown Prince. I won't say anything about you breaking Xu Huai'an's legs. And in the future, when we get married, whether you bring in many concubines to your home, or visit brothels and mansions to take care of external rooms, I won't have any objections. I won't treat your children harshly either." It is unlikely that anyone could have imagined that Xu Huai'an's legs were actually broken by Gu Juanheng, and this was only discovered after Xu Huai'an ascended to power in a previous life. It was precisely in the letter that she wrote this that Gu Juanheng came so quickly. A larger string of words indicates one's sincerity. "You're really generous. This is all I should do." Lin Jinglan answered politely. "Since that's the case, I'll have my mother's consort come tomorrow to propose marriage." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Force with Death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Force with Death, tomorrow. Hired. Lin Jinglan looked at Gu Juanheng with some surprise. "Yeah, since you've planned everything, why don't you marry me quickly so that I can continue to take a concubine and have a concubine?" Gu Juanheng stood up, with a wild smile on his lips, and casually said something. "All right, I'll leave first. You wait for me. Since the queen is coming tomorrow, Jinglan has something to trouble the crown prince about." Lin Jinglan stopped Gu Juanheng and then said something softly. Gu Juanheng was a bit surprised, but still nodded. "Since you are going to marry me soon, these are not problems. Let's go." Looking at the person who had disappeared into the darkness, Lin Jinglan couldn't help but frown. Looking back, in the eyes of people in the capital, Gu Juanheng and Xu Huai'an are just two extremes, one is extremely excellent and the other is extremely jerky. The relationship between the two has always been on par, making them a mortal enemy. Perhaps Gu Juanheng's move was just to disgust Xu Huai'an. But now these are not important. What she wants to think about is that her good parents and Lin Qingxue will definitely not give up easily. They will still want to marry Xu Huai'an. In fact, as expected, one night later, the door of the ancestral hall was opened, and some servants panicked and came to the temple, pulling Lin Jinglan and leaving. "Miss, get up quickly. Madam has fallen into the water, it's almost over. You go and take a look." Lin Jinglan didn't resist much and was directly dragged away by Grandma Du and two maids. But he was sneering in his heart, and indeed he came. "When I arrived at the yard where my parents lived, I saw many people in the yard. Before entering the room, I heard Lin Qingxue crying. 'Miss is here, Miss is here.' And Mama Du was even more afraid that others wouldn't know, shouting loudly. Entering the room, I saw her mother lying weakly on the bed, while Lin Qingxue knelt by the bed crying. There were some women standing beside her, all of whom were collateral members of the Lin family. There was also an old woman who was the wife of a respected clan elder in the Lin family. After seeing Lin Jinglan enter, these people looked at her with a hint of condemnation and disdain in their eyes. And her father Lin Xiaotian stood on the side with a sad and sorrowful face. "Madam, you said you wanted to see the young lady before you even died. The old servant has invited the young lady over." Du Mama pulled Lin Jinglan beside Mrs. Lin's bed and cried with a mournful expression on her face. Lin Jinglan silently watched as everything happened. Her good mother used the tactic of dying from a serious illness to force her to comply and even invited many members of her tribe. "Hey, miss, madam is so sick. Why did you come over?" Some members of the tribe spoke with a tone of blame, directly pinning the name of unfilial piety on Lin Jinglan. "Jinglan, let's take a look at your mother first. She has something to say to you." Lin Xiaotian's tone of voice was somewhat weathered, but the look in his eyes at Lin Jinglan was extremely affectionate. "Yes." Lin Jinglan knelt all night with extreme knee pain, almost unable to stand up, but she still walked to Mrs. Lin's bedside with her usual expression. Mrs. Lin's face was pale, extremely weak, and her eyes were weakly open. When she saw Lin Jinglan approaching, she quickly grabbed her hand. "Lana. Mom, I'm here." Since she wants to pretend, she will accompany her to continue pretending. "I'm afraid I won't be able to do it anymore, but I can't rest assured. I haven't been by your side for so many years, causing you to suffer." Cough 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 cough. Speaking while coughing, the words were filled with concern and reluctance towards Lin Jinglan. Many women next to her also shed tears. This is a kind mother's heart. "Mother, you'll be fine." Lin Jinglan also had red eyes, grabbing Mrs. Lin's hand and choking her mouth. "Look, the mother is kind and the daughter is filial, what a touching scene. Unfortunately, both of them are pretending." "Marquis." Mrs. Lin shouted again, and Lin Xiaotian quickly stepped forward to help Mrs. Lin up and leaned against his embrace. "Lon Air is pitiful. If I hadn't been by our side since childhood and had gone, would have been most worried about her. I owe Lon Air too much." Listening to Mrs. Lin's words, someone immediately resumed speaking. Madam, at that time, was also doing it for the good of Mississippi. She didn't let her go to that bitter and cold place in the northwest. Miss must understand your hard work. Du Mama spoke up at the right time. Those clan women looked at Mrs. Lin with even greater sadness and pity for the mother who was devoted to her daughter's well-being. At this moment, if Lin Jinglan does something against her mother, a word of filial piety can make her irreversible. "Madam, what do you need to explain? I will definitely do it and take good care of our Lana." Lin Xiaotian spoke low, his eyes gentle and sad, not to mention touching. Although Lana and Crown Prince Jun have an engagement, after all. At this point, many people understood and shook their heads in lamentation. What kind of person is Gu Juanheng? The entire capital, no one knows, is a playboy among playboys, a bastard among bastards. Which place in the Qin Tower and Chu Pavilion was not visited by Gu Juanheng? Miss Lin married such a person, what good life can she have? Marquis. Lanner has already reached the age of Ji, and Prince Su of Prince Zhao's mansion and my daughter of the Marquis's mansion have also made an engagement. I want Lanner to marry Prince Su, so I can rest assured. Lin Jinglan only then realized that the news of Xu Huai'an's legs not being cured had not yet spread, and outsiders had to wait until the day of their wedding to find out that Xu Huai'an's legs were completely broken. At this moment, in the eyes of everyone, Xu Huai'an was a young and talented hero, shining with light, wind, and moon. He was a top-notch good man. But this is Xuer's marriage. Lin Xiaotian seems to be hesitant. Xuer has been by our side since childhood, and she is also sensible. After all, we owe Lanner a debt. I really feel guilty about her. After speaking, he looked at Lin Qingxue again. Xuer, would you please give this marriage to your sister? Mom, whatever I'm willing to do, I'm willing to do it. As long as you're okay, sister is happy, and my daughter never gets married, it doesn't matter. Lin Qingxue cried out, filial and sensible. Okay, madam, don't worry. Even if I put in all my efforts, I will still help Lanner find a good person and make her happy for the rest of her life. Lin Xiaotian swore an ordinary oath and promised Mrs. Lin. Then they all looked at Lin Jinglan. Lanner, marry Crown Prince Su. You will definitely be happy, and this is the only thing my mother can do for you. Would you agree to marry Crown Prince Su? At this point, if Lin Jinglan does not agree, it will be disloyal, unfilial, and unjust. She will have no place to stand in the capital anymore. Mrs. Lin, Jinglan may not be able to agree. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Princess Jean exposes conspiracy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Princess Jean exposes conspiracy. While everyone was waiting for Lin Jinglan's answer, a crisp and clear voice suddenly rang out. Everyone's gaze converged towards the door. Then I saw a middle-aged woman with a dignified and beautiful face, luxurious clothing, and noble demeanor walking in. Behind her followed a group of maids, with a grand and imposing presence. When they saw this woman, the expressions of Lin Xiaotian and his wife, as well as Lin Qingxue, suddenly changed. Without leaving a trace, he gave Lin Jinglan a fierce look. I have met Princess Jean. The ladies in the room looked a bit evasive when they saw the luxurious woman bowing in unison. They had previously assumed that Mrs. Lin had said that Gu Juanheng was difficult to entrust. And this woman is exactly Gu Juanheng's mother, Princess Jean. Princess Jin's face was not very attractive, and she didn't say anything. She walked directly to the bedside and looked at Mrs. Lin. I have seen the Empress Dowager. Lin Jinglan stood up and respectfully bowed to Princess Jean. Oh, Jinglan, you don't need to be polite. It's been a while since we last saw each other. Why have you lost a lot of weight? Seeing Lin Jinglan, Princess Jin's expression suddenly changed, and she was extremely kind. When he looked at Mrs. Lin again, his expression instantly became cold and proud. The speed of changing faces made everyone present look sideways. Madam Lin, you are at least the mistress of the Marquis's mansion. My son and Jinglan have been engaged to each other since we were young. As soon as Jinglan reaches her hairpin, my prince's mansion will invite her to propose marriage. However, you disregarded the rules and asked Jinglan to marry someone else. What is your concern? Facing the imposing Princess Jean, Mrs. Lin didn't know what to say for a moment. Princess, don't blame me. My mother just wants my sister to live better. Lin Qingxue quickly spoke up, but secretly cursed in her heart, wondering why Princess Jean came at this time. The meaning of those two young ladies is that if Jinglan marries into my Prince Jin's mansion, she will not live well. This statement was heart-wrenching, and Lin Qingxue's face turned pale as she dared not say anything more. Cough 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 Princess, I didn't mean that. I just wanted Jinglan to live according to her own wishes. She has always admired Prince Su. As a mother, I don't want her to be prosperous, I just want her to be happy. Lin Jinglan sneered in her heart, disregarding her own reputation in order to marry Xu Huai'an for Lin Qingxue. Didn't she know that if she said these words, she would become the laughing stock of the entire capital? Mom, I really didn't. I haven't met Prince Su at all. My daughter is well aware of her engagement with Prince Jun and never dares to go beyond it. Please be aware of this. Lin Jinglan cried and shouted, about to kneel down, but suddenly let out a painful cry and fell to the side. Jinglan, what's wrong with you? Princess Jean quickly helped Lin Jinglan, as the room was filled with women and the only man was her father. Without hesitation, she lifted up her pants. Then everyone saw a blue and purple swelling on her fair knees, with faint blood seeping out. I'm okay, Lin Jinglan seemed a bit scared and quickly put down her pants, covering the wound, and spoke softly. But it is precisely this overwhelming appearance that makes it difficult for those present to think about it. Mrs. Lin and Lin Xiaotian's faces became even worse. Princess Jean, after all, this is the matter of my decision to appoint the Northern Marquis' mansion. Even though the Crown Prince and my daughter have an engagement, they have never gotten married in the end. My wife, on her deathbed, has sought happiness for the sake of surprise. Lin Xiao spoke up to Princess Jean with righteous words, and for the sake of Lin Qingxue, they were all willing to offend Prince Jin's mansion. They truly loved their daughter very much. Happiness, I don't think so. Yesterday, Dr. Hua just returned from Prince Zhao's mansion and said that Xu Huai'an's legs were broken and there is no way he can recover. Is this the happiness you are looking for Jinglan? Princess Jean mercilessly exposed Lin Xiaotian's words. This statement immediately shocked others, and Xu Huai'an's legs were broken. If that's the case, then Mrs. Lin's statement that she was trying to bring happiness to Lin Jinglan is somewhat unreliable. In addition, with the serious injury on Lin Jinglan's knee just now, there may be an illusion of being punished. Looking at Mrs. Lin for a moment, there was a hint of exploration in her eyes. No, I don't know. I just feel like my life is not long. I want Lana to be happy. Oh, by the way, I heard that Mrs. Lin is feeling unwell, so I specifically invited Dr. Hua to treat her. When Mrs. Lin had something else to say, Princess Jean interrupted her, and then Dr. Hua walked into the room carrying a medicine box. Hua Tai, whose beard turned white, is the head of the Imperial Hospital. Not only is he highly skilled in medicine, but he is also upright and selfless. The entire capital knows that he is a respected old gentleman. Mrs. Lin, I'll give you a pulse first. Dr. Hua said to Mrs. Lin with a good temper. No need, I have already had the local traditional Chinese medicine practitioner show it to Madam. Don't bother Dr. Hua. Lin Xiaotian forced a smile and refused. What is Lord Lin saying? Throughout the Great Chu, the medical skills of Dr. Hua are top-notch. How can the doctors in your mansion compare to Dr. Hua? Let Dr. Hua treat your wife. As long as you don't die, Dr. Hua will definitely have a solution. Although Princess Jean spoke politely, she was reasonable. Everyone present nodded and even someone tried to persuade her. Mrs. Lin's face turned even paler, and only Lin Jinglan sneered in her heart. Of course, she knew that Mrs. Lin was just pretending and falling into the water was just a show, and of course, she was afraid. Looking at the gaze of Princess Jean and others, Mrs. Lin suddenly regretted using this move. But now there's no other choice but to reach out and have Dr. Hua diagnose the pulse. After Dr. Hua picked up Mrs. Lin's pulse, his eyebrows slowly furrowed and he remained silent for a cup of tea. The other women of the Lin family thought that Mrs. Lin was powerless to turn the tide. Madam, it's just a slight cold and nothing serious. But Dr. Hua's conclusion surprised everyone's jaw. Marquis, don't worry. Madam has always been in good health. As long as you drink more hot water this time, you will be fine. I'm leaving now and I have to go to the Zhao Prince's mansion to see Prince Xu again soon. After finishing speaking, he stood up and walked out carrying a medicine box. Just drink more hot water and you don't even need to prescribe medicine. Everyone just stared blankly. Now, it was confirmed that Xu Huai'an was disabled and that Mrs. Lin was about to die was false. They are not fools, they understand the general idea in their hearts. Lord Lin, madam, are you still saying that Jinglan's marriage to my son is unfair to Jinglan? Princess Jean suddenly smiled and said to Lin Xiaotian and the others. The meaningful gaze was full of mockery and disdain. Today, I have come to the prince's mansion to offer my services. Here is the dowry list. How does the marquis's wife feel about it? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Second brother Lin Qingyun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Second brother Lin Qingyun. When everyone left and only the Lin family of 4 were left in the room. Lin Xiaotian and Mrs. Lin's faces finally darkened, and the eyes that looked at Lin Jinglan were full of resentment and anger. You had anticipated what happened today long ago. Lin Xiaotian spoke in a deep voice, and Mrs. Lin also sat up, looking at her biological daughter with a displeased expression. What kind of joke is my father making? I've been kneeling in the temple all this time. If it weren't for Grandma Du pulling me over, I wouldn't have known my mother was seriously ill. Lin Jinglan still stood in place, his face calm, but his eyes were cold. Since the dowry of Princess Jean has been given, the marriage is a definite matter, and the entire capital will be fully aware of it before tomorrow. The marriage between Lin Jinglan, the eldest lady of the Dingbei Marquis mansion, and Prince Jin Gu Juanheng will have no possibility of change again. And no matter how much her parents force Lin Jinglan in the future, there is no other way. Jinglan, do you think you will be happy to marry that playboy Gu Juanheng? Mrs. Lin looked at Lin Jinglan with disappointment in her eyes and asked coldly. A gentleman should keep his promise. Since I have an engagement with Gu Juanheng, my daughter will not regret it whether she is happy or not in the future. Lin Jinglan did not make any changes and still spoke lightly. The slightly raised lips seemed to be smiling, even marrying Gu Juanheng was much stronger than marrying the disabled Xu Huai'an. Okay, she truly deserves to be my good daughter. You don't have to regret it in the future. Lin Xiaotian seemed to be trembling with anger, and his indifferent and cold tone was not like facing his own daughter, but rather facing his own enemy. Since my mother is fine, my daughter will leave first. Anyway, there is a younger sister accompanying my mother here. Taking a glance at Lin Qingxue, whose eyes were swollen and still crying, Lin Jinglan bowed to the two before turning around and returning to her own yard. Miss, hurry up and have some food. You haven't eaten all day and night. Xiao Yan had already prepared a table to eat and eagerly awaited Lin Jinglan's return. Watching such a scene, Lin Jinglan finally felt some warmth. Now, in the entire Marquis mansion, the only person who truly thinks for himself is probably Xiao Yan. You can also eat together. No, it's against the rules. Xiao Yan quickly shook her head, while Lin Jinglan also shook her head with a firm tone. Sit down and have dinner. Xiao Yan sat down helplessly, and the two of them ate while talking. Miss, Princess Jean has already given her dowry today. It's really great that you don't have to marry Prince Xu anymore. Even Xiao Yan understood that even marrying a playboy was better than marrying a disabled person. I think so. With a faint smile, Lin Jinglan was thinking in her heart that if her marriage with Gu Juanheng was settled now, her parents wouldn't know what they would do to prevent the marriage between Lin Qingxue and Xu Huai'an. After all, Lin Qingxue is their flesh and a treasure in their hands. They won't watch Lin Qingxue marry Xu Huai'an. Miss, I heard that Prince Jun is also a playboy who attracts cats and teases dogs and lingers in brothels. If he were to marry him. Xiao Yan's words were not finished, but the meaning was very clear. It seemed that such a person was not much better than Xu Huai'an. It's okay, you have to remember one thing, at least Prince Jin's mansion is much simpler than Prince Zhao's mansion. Xu Huai'an is not the only crown prince in the Zhao prince's mansion. Nowadays, the Zhao prince's backyard is complex, with numerous descendants, and there are not many dirty matters inside. In her past life, she was deeply mired in the quagmire and immersed in the conspiracy and calculation in the backyard all day long. Prince Jin only has one wife, Princess Jin, and only one son, Gu Juanheng, under his command, making him the simplest family in the entire capital city. Lin Jinglan slept soundly and didn't get up until 3 strokes of the sun. Since her parents returned, she used to wake up early every day to greet them and then serve her mother with her makeup and meals. Originally, she was a legitimate young lady and didn't need to do these things, but at that time, Lin Jinglan thought about not being with her parents for many years, and now she wants to be more filial and also want to strengthen some relationships with her parents and family. But every time they have dinner, their family is happy and busy, but no one cares about her. She is like an outsider. Since she has lived a lifetime of hard work, she will not be bothered by it in the future. After having a simple breakfast with Xiaoluo, just as she was about to leave, a person suddenly walked into her small courtyard with a fierce aura and angry eyes. Lin Jinglan, you are too presumptuous. As a daughter, you are unfilial and rebellious. How can you deserve to be a member of our Lin family? Lin Jinglan watched as the young man approached him and shouted at him, his expression gradually becoming cold. My second brother is quite leisurely. He comes to question me as soon as he comes back, so filial. The tone is sarcastic and devoid of any emotion. This young man is her second brother, the second son of the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, Lin Qingyun, a famous young general. A few days ago, I left home to inspect Xishan camp. I just returned this morning. But as her legitimate second brother, she was equally biased to the extreme, never considering herself as his own younger sister, only recognizing Lin Qingxue. In my past life, I forced myself to marry Xu Huai'an with my parents. Later, when he encountered difficulties in the Zhao Wang mansion, he wanted to seek help from him, but he coldly said that a married woman should not entangle too much with her family. Even watching oneself being bullied and ridiculed by others is just a cold observer. How dare you speak to me like that? Lin Qingyun was somewhat surprised by Lin Jinglan's tone. His younger sister has always been dignified and courteous, and her attitude towards her has always been pleasing. She has never spoken to herself like this before. Is there anything else, second brother? If not, I'll leave first. I have something else to do. Don't want to say anything more to this unscrupulous second brother. Lin Jinglan is about to step out of the courtyard. Lin Jinglan, I already know what happened these past 2 days. Why did you disobey your parents and refuse to marry Xu Huai'an? Sure enough, it's still for Lin Qingxue. There's no reason, it's Gu Juanheng who made the engagement with me, not Xu Huai'an, so I naturally don't want to marry him. Looking straight at Lin Qingyun, he had been injured on the battlefield and left behind a hidden illness, making it difficult to fall asleep every night. After she found out, she wrote a letter specifically to consult with the senior of the divine Dr. Valley, seeking a prescription for him, mixing his diet, and cooking a bowl of soup every night to help him sleep peacefully. But he not only showed no gratitude, but also repeatedly told Lin Qingxue that this was something that servants should do. Only she did it regardless of her status as a daughter, just to curry favor. And in this life, such things will never happen again. Upon hearing Lin Jinglan's indifferent words, Lin Qingyun's face also darkened. Let's talk about the wedding later. Hurry up and kneel down to apologize to your parents. Also, Shuer, you need to apologize to her. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. If you're going to fight, do you still have to choose a day? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. If you're going to fight, do you still have to choose a day? Upon hearing Lin Qingyun's words, Lin Jinglan was about to burst into laughter. Why apologize? I'm not wrong. Also, Lin Qingxue, does she deserve it? I don't want to talk to you now, get out of my yard immediately. Glancing coldly at Lin Qingyun, she spoke without hesitation. Lin Qingyun didn't react for a moment. It seems like he doesn't know Lin Jinglan, he can't believe it. This is his dignified, obedient sister. How dare you make me leave? After realizing it, Lin Qingyun's anger rubbed against him. With a hot temper, he couldn't help but extend his palm and was about to fan Lin Jinglan. It's outrageous to have to beat my weak sister without considering myself as an older brother at all. Pop. The sound of applause rang out, but it did not fall on Lin Jinglan's face. Lin Qingyun opened his eyes wide, with obvious slap marks on his cheek. He couldn't believe Lin Jinglan's movements were so fast, so he quickly grabbed his wrist and slapped him with his backhand. Xiaoluo on one side also covered her mouth in fear, and she couldn't believe that the young lady dared to hit the second young master. How dare you hit me? Lin Jinglan didn't know what to say when she heard this. How dare you talk to me like this? How dare you make me leave? How dare you hit me? Is this Lin Qingyun's catchphrase? I don't know how many slaps I received from Lin Qingxue in my past life, but now this slap is nothing. I'll just fight, do you still have to choose a date? Lin Jinglan let go of him and said something indifferent. Meanwhile, Xiaoluo quickly grabbed Lin Jinglan, fearing that the second young master, who was killing people like wildfire on the battlefield, would kill her young lady in a fit of anger. Lin Qingyun has never been slapped before, and Lin Jinglan was the first person to dare to slap him. Are you going to take action against me, second brother? But you have to think carefully. I'm going to go to Miss Rongwa's appointment soon, and if I go with all my injuries. But Lin Jinglan didn't care at all, because she knew very well that she had exposed the injuries on her knees in front of the clan women yesterday. If I get beaten again today, or if I can't make an appointment, the whole capital will say that the Northern Marquis' mansion is abusing my daughter. After Lin Qingyun knew this, he would never hit himself again. Sure enough, upon hearing Lin Jinglan's words, Lin Qingyun's raised hand paused and then tightly grasped it, his facial muscles seeming to tremble. Xiaoluo, let's go. After greeting Xiaoluo, Lin Jinglan turned around and walked out of her small courtyard. Second brother, please remember not to come to my Hengwu courtyard if you have nothing to do in the future. At the door, Lin Jinglan didn't forget to remind Lin Qingyun. Then he walked out in a good mood. They don't always say that although they are dignified and orderly, they are a bit too rigid and cannot compare to Lin Qingshue's agility and beauty. After that day, I did as they wished, no longer being that dignified and obedient daughter. Speaking of hitting Lin Qingyun, it's really nice to see how he feels when he eats flat. After sitting in the carriage outside the mansion, Xiaoluo gradually regained consciousness. Miss, you just hit second young master. What should he do if he turns around and complains? What should Lady Marquis do if she punishes you? The injury on Mrs. knee was treated with medicine yesterday, and now it's only slightly better. I can't help but kneel in the temple again. Don't worry, I won't be allowed to kneel in the temple again. After all, they all want face, let alone Lin Qingyun, who is so proud. How could he say that he was beaten by his own sister? Xiaoluo felt a bit uneasy, but seeing her young lady's calm and composed demeanor, she slightly relaxed her mind. Miss has always been right, but then there was another strange question asked to Lin Jinglan. Miss, it seems that you haven't made an appointment with the Miss from Rongwa Mansion. Are we going to visit Rongwa Mansion now? Silly girl, that was just an excuse to scare Lin Qingyun. Of course, I'm not going to go find Yuling. Do we have anything else to do? Patting Xiaoluo's head, Lin Jinglan smiled and said. Where are we going? Slave trade. Ignoring Xiaoluo's shocked expression, Lin Jinglan directly instructed the coachman to drive the carriage to the slave trade. Because she needs to find two people. Wearing a veil, Xiaoluo and the coachman Lin Quan had just entered the slave trade when a steward quickly welcomed them. The steward is very accurate in judging people. The woman in front of her is of top-quality clothing, with a dignified temperament. Even the two attendants behind her have a kind of everyone's demeanor. This girl, at first glance, comes from a high family. Miss, are you coming to buy slaves? Do you want to stay at home and guard the courtyard, or is it servant Xiaoxi? The steward led a few people inside while asking politely. Take me a look, I'm missing a girl and I'm looking for a literacy master to help me manage my shop. Lin Jinglan spoke lightly, with a hint of pride. But the person in charge was not angry. He knew very well that high-ranking officials were like this. Okay, I'll take the girl to take a look first. You can choose a maid first. Facing Lin Jinglan, who is so beautiful and noble, the attitude of the manager is also very respectful. Xiaoyan felt a bit strange in her heart. There were many maids in the Dingbei Marquis' mansion, and there were about 10 maids in the Hengwu courtyard together. Why did Miss still buy maids? They first followed the steward to a courtyard, which was filled with women of all ages, about a few hundred of them crowded together. The steward pointed to several delicate teenage girls and introduced them to her, but Lin Jinglan shook his head, saying he didn't like these people. What about these few? The steward pointed a few more times, but Lin Jinglan still shook her head until she turned the whole yard. Now, the situation in charge becomes very difficult. Miss, all the women in our slave trade are here. Are you really not interested in them? Is that really all that's left? Lin Jinglan gave the steward a deep glance and couldn't help but furrow her brows. Has she not been caught in the slave trade yet? There is one more, but it seems a bit inappropriate for this girl to be a maid. The boss was even more difficult, it was a difficult girl, even he dared not approach easily. Oh, take me to take a look. Lin Jinglan's eyes lit up, as if he was very interested. The manager was helpless and could only take them to a remote corner. There was an iron cage there, covered in a black cloth. The steward stepped forward and lifted the black cloth, revealing a disheveled woman with her limbs locked in. Seeing the few of them, the woman coldly glanced at them, unable to see their faces clearly. However, her fierce eyes, like those of wolves, were heart-wrenching. Even Xiaoyan was so frightened that she couldn't help but take a step back. But Lin Jinglan's eyes lit up, and even the fingers clasped in front of her couldn't help but tremble slightly. Finally found you. Then he turned his head and spoke to the supervisor. I'll take her now. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Xu Xiaoluo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Xu Xiaoluo. Xiaoyan didn't understand why the young lady wanted this woman. She looked very scary. But Lin Jinglan had no fear at all, and her gaze was full of tenderness as she looked at the woman in the cage. Xiaoluo, I have finally found you. In this life, I will protect you well and never let anyone die as tragically as in the previous life. Miss, think twice. It's not that I don't want to sell this woman, but that she has martial arts skills and a fierce personality. Anyone who gets a little closer to her will be hurt by her. The steward naturally knew that the girl in front of him could afford the price, but he was also worried that if this seemingly noble girl were hurt by the crazy woman inside, that would be troublesome for him, or for the entire slave trade. It's okay. Lin Jinglan just shook her head and then approached the iron cage, nodding gently at the girl inside with a gentle gaze. Are you willing to come with me? Not to buy her, but to ask if she is willing to go with me. It turned out that Xiaoluo had suffered so much before meeting her, fortunately everything was still in time. The woman in the cage finally gave Lin Jinglan a serious look, but she had no emotions and was full of guard. If you can take my younger brother with you and hire a doctor to treat his injuries, I will follow you. Brother, didn't Xiaoluo's younger brother die long ago? Lin Jinglan was a bit puzzled, but then she felt a sense of joy in her heart. It seemed that she had been reborn relatively early, even before Xiaoluo's younger brother died of illness. If Xiaoluo can be cured, she will definitely be very happy. Okay. Lin Jinglan agreed very readily, but the manager on one side hesitated a bit. Miss, her younger brother is seriously ill. I have also invited a doctor to come and see him. He said he won't live for 3 days. Would you like to reconsider? He was afraid that this crazy woman would go crazy and hurt Lin Jinglan again because of her younger brother's situation. That's because the doctor you're looking for is not good. I'll find the best doctor in the capital for him. And the woman in the cage, upon hearing Lin Jinglan's words, her cold and ruthless eyes also showed a hint of emotion. Kneeling down towards Lin Jinglan. Thank you very much, miss. As long as you find a good doctor for my younger brother, even if he cannot be cured, Xu Xiaoluo will drive you for a lifetime, serving as a slave and servant. Xu Xiaoluo has always been a woman who values love and righteousness. In her past life, she was only saved from a playboy by herself. She vowed to stay by her side to the death, never give up, until she was killed by Xu Huai'an in the end for herself. Thinking of Xu Huai'an, Lin Jinglan's heart was filled with uncontrollable hatred. Let go of her and take us to find her brother. Turning her head to the steward, she spoke without asking about the price. In her opinion, no matter what price she paid today, she would take Xu Xiaoluo away. The manager took a deep look at Lin Jinglan, but still opened the cage and untied the chains of Xu Xiaoluo's hands and feet, taking them to a firewood shed in the courtyard. There was a teenager lying in the firewood room, with more breath and less intake. He had originally planned to be thrown to the mass grave in the next few days, but today they met a nobleman. Xu Xiaoluo quickly ran to the boy's side, his eyes filled with worry and fear. Lin Quan, go and solve the remaining matters with this leader, and then take the 2 of them to Baohe Hall. Wait and find us. Lin Quan is a trusted confidant of her grandfather, who is wholeheartedly devoted to Lin Jinglan. He is also the only person she can trust in the Marquis's mansion today. Yes. However, after a while, Lin Quan paid and also obtained the body deeds of the 2 siblings. Xiaoluo, hurry up and take your brother to Baohe Hall. The doctors there are the best in the entire capital. As he spoke, he stepped forward, ignoring the dirt on the boy's body, and asked Lin Quan to carry him towards the carriage outside. Miss, you are now. Lin Quan hesitated for a moment. After he left, there were only Miss and Xiao Yan left. What would happen if something happened? Don't worry, I'm not that fragile. I'll go find you soon after I finish my job. I must find the best doctor and do my best to save Xiaoluo's brother. Lin Jinglan spoke seriously to Lin Quan. Miss, don't worry. Xu Xiaoluo followed Lin Quan and looked at Lin Jinglan with gratitude before leaving. Alright, can you take me to see the accountant now? Dealing with this matter properly, Lin Jinglan breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Xu Xiaoluo was found, it didn't matter if that person couldn't be found. Oh, good, good. The steward looked at Lin Jinglan with surprise in his eyes. The young lady was generous in her actions. Just now, these 2 siblings could have boldly asked for a full 50 taels of silver, but her servant never hesitated. If we make another deal, he will make a lot of money today. The manager felt a burst of joy in his heart. Directly leading the master and servant towards another courtyard, there were all men, both old and young. Miss, these few are all literate. They used to work as Mr. Zhang, an accountant in the prestigious school, but were only sold to this slave shop because their master committed a crime. The steward kept pointing at people and introducing Lin Jinglan, but she didn't get a satisfactory one. I thought to myself, maybe I came at the wrong time, and it's destined that I won't be able to do business with that person. There was inevitably a hint of disappointment in his eyes. Even the manager felt a bit helpless. This girl didn't even have a crush on her, so it seems that she won't be able to make this money herself. Forget it, Xiaoyan, let's go. After spinning around, Lin Jinglan didn't see the person she was looking for. she said to Xiaoluo and turned around to leave. Miss, are you looking for Mr. Accountant? Can you take a look at me? At this moment, a voice suddenly called out to Lin Jinglan. Turning her head, Lin Jinglan saw a man in his 30s with the word slave engraved on his face, saying to herself. Lin Jinglan carefully looked at the middle-aged man with a dirty face and plain eyes, carefully identifying him. This doesn't match the image of the person I knew in my past life. Strategically strategizing and killing all sides in the business world, the smooth handling of the richest man in Beijing is different. What's your name? I have seen that person from afar before, but it seems that there was no such slave mark on his face at that time. Qin, the villain. Surprisingly, it was actually that person. Upon hearing this person's answer, Lin Jinglan immediately turned his head to look at the supervisor on the side. I bought this person, how much does it cost? Can you tell me the number? The nonchalant attitude left both the head and Qin stunned, and then the head kindly reminded Lin Jinglan. Miss, you must be clear that this is a slave who has been sold out, and the inscription on his face is not very good, is it? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. If you dare to fight me, I will let him die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. If you dare to fight me, I will let him die. The steward carefully said that within the Great Chu, even slaves rarely had inscriptions on their faces. Unless this slave has committed heinous acts, such a person is generally not respected and can only be the lowest-ranking slave, let alone a respectable accountant. It's okay, I have a clear idea. Just give me a few numbers. The manager felt very helpless in his heart. If someone else were to face such a generous buyer, he would definitely speak up. But with the word slave on his face, he wouldn't dare to say too outrageous a price even if he was looking for reasons. 20 taels of silver, the girl can take it with her. In my heart, there was a heartache. I used to be 50, but now I only have 20 taels, which is too much difference. This is silver, his deed, you give it to me. Take out a bag of silver and throw it to the steward. The steward opened his eyes and immediately smiled happily. He quickly went to retrieve Qin's documents. However, after a while, the manager handed Qin's body deed to Xiaoluo, and Lin Jinglan directly signaled Qin to follow him out. She didn't know what crime Qin had committed, but she didn't ask. But in his heart, he was thinking about how Qin left in his past life. Did someone buy him out, or did he find a way to leave on his own? If it weren't for her past life, she had overheard Xu Huai'an say that the richest man Qin had been sold into slavery, and she wouldn't have thought of trying her luck. The three of them rented a carriage and headed directly to Baohe Hall. Master, I don't know who you are. Qin's address changed very quickly. Sitting in the carriage, he carefully asked Lin Jinglan. Faced with Qin, Lin Jinglan naturally didn't have much trust, but upon reflection, she still revealed her identity. I am Miss Dingbei, Lin Jinglan. I will be your only master in the future. His face was cold and his tone was calm. Qin, who had lived for more than 30 years and had seen many storms, was slightly stunned. This girl looks like she's only in her teens, why does she look like she has a plan in mind and everything is in her chest? And he didn't expect that this person would actually be Miss Lin from the Lin family. I remember that in the future, I will definitely go through fire and water as my master, and I will not hesitate. In the small carriage, Qin's spine curved deeply, but he did not kneel down. Well, it's best if you can remember. Lin Jinglan didn't expect Qin to pledge his loyalty to him to the death now. People's hearts are gradually subdued, so there's no need to rush for a moment. Quickly arriving at Baohe Hall, Qin felt a bit cramped as she entered the gate. Wearing rags and covered in dirt, very eye-catching. Xiaoluo, go buy some clothes for the three of them, Qin's buy a long shirt. Lin Jinglan gave a faint command to Xiaoluo, but didn't forget to remind her. Upon hearing these words, Qinyi's eyes suddenly became more shocked. She knew she could read and loved to wear long clothes. Xiaoluo followed suit, while Lin Jinglan took Qinyi to the second floor of Baohe Hall, which was a temporary residence for patients. "Miss, you're back." Lin Quan was at the entrance of a room and saw Lin Jinglan coming over. He quickly welcomed him. "How are they doing?" She just saw that although the young man was seriously ill, he was left unattended. As long as he was treated properly, there would be no problem. "You've been saved, young lady. Don't worry." Lin Quan gave Qinyi a strange glance and led them into a room where Xiaoluo was taking care of the still unconscious young man. "Now you can rest assured." Walking up to Xiaoluo's side, he spoke in a warm voice. Qinyi on one side looked slightly sideways. This girl still has such a gentle thing, and the speed of her face changing is really fast. But who knew that after giving Lin Jinglan a deep glance, Xiaoluo suddenly knelt down heavily and kowtowed to Lin Jinglan. The kindness of saving lives is unforgettable. In the future, Xiaoluo's life will be Mrs. Lin Jinglan was startled and quickly helped Xiaoluo up. "In front of me in the future, there's no need to do this. Just relax a bit." "Yes." Although she didn't understand what Lin Jinglan meant, Xiaoluo still nodded. Then Lin Jinglan came to the boy's bed and extended her finger to feel his pulse. Teenagers should have congenital deficiencies and very weak bodies, but taking good care of them is not a problem. You can take your younger brother to live in the Baohe Hall for the next few days, and when he recovers, you can come back to my side. After finishing this sentence, I looked at Qinyi again. You can also stay by their side and take care of them for a few days. In a few days, I have something for you to do. The slaves I just bought were left outside like this. Xiaoluo and Qinyi both looked at Lin Jinglan in surprise. The meaning is very obvious. Aren't you afraid they ran away? However, Lin Jinglan was not prepared to answer their questions. Instead, he asked Lin Quan to help fetch 2 pots of water to wash their faces. At the same time, Xiaoluo also bought back the clothes, 1 for 2 sets, and even shoes, which can be said to be very thoughtful. "Stay here with peace of mind, I'll come see you again in a few days." Handing Xiaoluo a bag of silver, Lin Jinglan turned around and left with Xiaoluo and Lin Quan. Being graceful and neat, both Xiaoluo and Qinyi didn't know what to say. "She's really a weirdo." Qinyi looked at Lin Jinglan's back and muttered to himself. But what Lin Jinglan didn't know was that not long after he left, someone went to the slave shop and named someone to buy Qinyi. It was bought away by someone. In a secluded courtyard, a faint voice sounded from the room, which was unexpected and seemed to have a faint anger. "Yes, it's one step too late to belong." A young man knelt outside, looking very remorseful. "Who is the person who bought Qinyi?" Upon hearing this question, the young man outside lowered his head and seemed even more ashamed. "I don't know, the person in charge there said it was a girl, but that girl was covered in a veil throughout the entire journey and I don't know her background. In fact, what Lin Jinglan is guarding against is this. She doesn't want people to know that she bought Qinyi yet. She has always known that the origin of Qinyi is not so simple. They just found out who Qinyi was in the slave trade, even faster than their movements. Go check." "Yes." The young man saluted respectfully and retreated. The person in the room seemed to smile, a bit cold. "Who on earth dares to compete with me?" Then something seemed to be thrown out of his hand, and the big tree in the yard was suddenly pierced through a hole. Taking a closer look, a black chess piece slowly fell from the ground. "If you dare to steal someone from me, I'll let him die." But when Lin Jinglan returned home, she had no idea that she was about to be targeted. Moreover, there is no time to think about it, as another incident has occurred in the Dingbei Marquis' mansion. Lin Qingxue has fallen ill. After hearing this, Lin Jinglan just raised her eyebrows. I get sick easily, why didn't I die of illness? End of this chapter.